Hello and welcome back to Coach Caroline's channel. I cannot wait to introduce you to Shane Laufman. So I'm going to read his bio to you first. Here we go. Shane Laufman is a Christian multi-founder, 3-time best-selling author and creator of the new Psychosis model, FQ3C. He is also the author of his new book, Doomed to Succeed. He has achieved just under 4 million in revenue in his first year with one of his companies. And he has trained over 4,000 students from Fortune 15 companies in investment and finance-related topics. He has gotten a senator elected, and he has been a partner or founder of over 30 startup ventures, which has allowed him to work with a wide range of entrepreneurs, including billionaires. Goal creation and success tracking is what's led him to be here today and sharing what he can to help the next person. Shane, your journey is nothing short of extraordinary, and your impact is undeniable. I know our audience is eager to learn from you. So thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and insights with us today. It's a true honor to have you here.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to serve the community and give them any sort of tidbits, nuggets that I can. And at the end of the day, again, just thank you so much for taking this time as well. It's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start with my first question. What inspired you to write Doomed to Succeed?
Ooh, okay. That's a great question. I think the problem that I saw in all these different ventures over the past couple of decades really came down to trying to simplify what success is. And when you look at what most people go through in their path, they're tapping into systems, they're tapping into processes, and then they're left hanging at the end of the system or process, wondering why it is that the system or process didn't work for me. And I saw that happening all the time. And it's not to say that that system or that process that it tapped into was bad. What I found is that there's something that was missing. So this really led on a journey to discover, like, what is the reality of the variables? What are all of the pieces that have to be ready to go in play to make it so you could become the next, millionaire, billionaire, so you could be the next Gary V or whatever guru or expert that you're listening to. And
Right.
So the inspiration was really this drive and frustration, even for myself, always being fed these tips and tricks that just never seem to really make sense fully. And that's where this really came from. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the self-help books, or as you say, the systems or processes out there are kind of like a cookie cutter, right? It's like they're kind of suitable for the general public or the general person, but not suitable for everybody.
And in fact, I actually found it was the opposite. I found it's not even a general public. It's isolated to maybe somewhere between 8 to 20% of the populace that would buy into that system. And it's always said by even people who, like Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, he goes, "Oh yeah, you have the it factor."
Yeah.
What's that even mean? Well, so by looking at it, I was like, oh, every single process, every single system, every single business, niche, whatever, does actually have an it factor needed that matches with it. And these people who found that was their lane ended up not really knowing why they were the it factor. They just knew how to tell everybody else what I did, how I did it, but not why is it that it works for me in reality, because they can't describe this it factor for them, right? So yeah, it's been a major frustration and problem that I've seen across the board in every industry. So yeah.
Wow. So tell me, was there like a specific moment or event that sparked this?
Yes. Yeah. So I was actually working with one of my other companies. I'm not going to bring that up because I don't want people to get on into too many tangents here. We want to keep this kind of specific. But it is dealing with AI. And we were having trouble being able to help these people understand how it was that our company was different than the competitors. And the ultimate difference came down to our relationship with Google. And so we were like, okay, we have to find a simple, a direct, a easy to understand method here to communicate this weird nuance that for whatever reason is very difficult for the majority of people to really understand.
Right.
Well, that led us to go in and effectively reverse engineer Google's algorithm. And in reverse engineering it, we were like, well, what makes it so the algorithm actually works every single time? And turns out that that's how we first discovered the first 5 of the 12 variables of FQ3C, which is how we came up with FQ3C or FQCC. Yeah.
Right.
So that's where the triggering moment happened. And when that happened, we started looking at the algorithms of all the other applications that are major applications out there. And we're like, oh my gosh, they all follow the same thing, all of them.
Right.
So that was kind of the aha moment where I was like, I think this is where it is. I think this is where it actually exists to answer this it factor question. And sure enough, we'll let to it.
Sorry, are you saying it was the search for uniqueness?
No, search for clarity.
Search for clarity.
Yeah, it's clarity so that we could communicate that effectively and efficiently to the clients. Yeah.
Right.
And because they were just, no matter what we did, it felt like it was just constantly a fight and a battle. And everyone's just like, we don't understand this, so we're not going to go anywhere. Well, like, why not? It just came out to they didn't understand the difference. And the difference lied within the algorithms of actually Google, because it's very closely tied together. And if you don't understand Google, you don't understand the algorithms, how can you possibly know and understand the product that we were working with at the time? So that's what that prompted us to go on that journey to seek out and search. I ended up going further than that, and ended up separating. And so that's where FQ3C actually ended up taking the brainchild, if you will. It started there, and then I ended up taking it on my own and going, I really want to know the truth. What's the extent of these algorithms? Because if all these different companies are servicing clients like you in a manner where you're not complaining when they give you a feed, for example, then that means that they're doing something right, and all of them are doing the same exact thing. So that's all that sales is. That's all that teachers, that's all that coaches are. That's all that we ever do to each other, is we're just trying to serve and feed the person what it is that they want first, and then desire second, and then what they need third, right? I believe in that order. And if you can't communicate those different factors, then you're not going to be able to do sales very well. You're not going to be able to convey ideas very well. So something was there that made it so that instead of living in this world where it's very much intuitive based in all of the different successes I've been in, it is about transforming that into a more tangible and methodical, and it turns out to be formulaic in nature.
Right. So can you tell us what FQ3C stands for?
Absolutely. So FQ3C is an acronym for frequency, quality, consistency, continuity, and then clarity. And it has the best relationship in that order, but it actually acts like a real formulaic expression. There is no step 1, there is no step 2, there is no step 3. What it is all the variables point to each other, and all the variables, when they get explored, can be leveraged to discover each other. And when you have discovered all of them and you understand their relationship to each other, now, like a formula, you can start moving one variable and all the other ones change in a predictable and measurable manner.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So how did you come up with the title Doomed to Succeed?
Well, in using FQ3C,
Mm,
we found that the other titles that were coming out were very saturated in the marketplace, and
okay.
there's a downside to using AI currently, especially when you're trying to write some of these books or when you're trying to find a title. I
Mm,
think it's really great for suggestions and just kind of keeping it there, but don't actually take them, because then you're going to accidentally enter into most of the time a very competitive landscape.
right.
So what I did is I used FQ3C and was like, okay, let's reverse engineer some of the best titles that are out there, period. What
Right.
is it that they actually did? How did it work? Et cetera, et cetera. Because there's been documented cases where there's been books that have changed their title as a secondary launch,
Okay.
and first book ended up maybe doing 200-300 sales. Next book ends up catapulting to 10, 20, 30,000 sales just
Right.
because of a title change.
Right.
So what we did is we were like, okay, what is it that the book showcases as a unique factor to
Mm,
all these other self-help books? And
mm,
the biggest part about FQ3C is that you can't run from it, because it's like your DNA in your biology of every single cell. You can't
yeah.
go into every single cell and all of a sudden change your looks, right?
Mm,
That's your
mm,
DNA. FQ3C is the DNA equivalent of your psyche and how you go through the process of making any and every decision. So, if that's the truth, that
right.
means that when you chose to eat that cookie, or when you chose to go and sit, play video games,
Yeah.
you actually were successful in that, even when you tell everybody else, oh yeah, I'm working on my business, or oh yeah, I'm on a diet, or oh yeah, whatever that antithesis is. The reality is that you actually are successful. You can't, because your FQ3C is just always running as a
Right.
formula on how you're making your decisions. So what we found is either you are in control of your FQ3C variables and
Right.
thus control the outcomes of the formulas, or you're out of control, meaning you're living a life that's in the habits that were generated from your FQ3C variables that are constantly running. But
Mm,
either way, you're doomed to succeed because they're working. As long as you're
right.
breathing, as long as you're alive, as long as you have a conscious of some kind, it's working,
Right.
right? So you're doomed to succeed. And that's what we really wanted to bring to the table, and what inspired the title.
Interesting. So, what kind of research did you do for this book? And did you discover anything that surprised you?
Oh man, I definitely discovered a lot of surprises. The main process after we went through the reverse engineering of the Google algorithm was started actually looking at all the other applications, major, like YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, et cetera, right?
Right.
And we started looking at the different rules and the different updates over the past year. So we looked at historical data, and we noticed that it was always based on those variables. Um, but something that was interesting is we were like, well, can we take this into the real world? Does this work everywhere else? Well,
Right.
what we found is it does, but it doesn't,
Mm.
right?
Oh,
It the five variables definitely are always in existence, but they couldn't answer all of the circumstances and questions.
right.
So, and a lot of it has to come from I'll call it the human behavioral component. Once you
Mm.
add a human behavioral component into it, you add more dimensions that go beyond just a standard algorithm and how like an AI might process information and approach problems, right?
Okay.
So when we started bringing it into the real world, thankfully I've done so many startups that I was able to kind of cross-reference a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And also was able to have experiences with some of the billionaires, was able to observe them in person up front, was able to see how they do stuff, was
Right.
able to observe people in the medical field, financial field, in IT programming fields. So just a lot of observation of a lot of people and documenting it and saying, okay, what was that other variable? What's that other piece?
Yeah.
And uh, I believe that if something works at a micro scale, for it to be inherently true, you have to be able to also do it at macro, and vice versa. So we also ended up bringing it down to like, okay, well, is this something that actually works at a cellular level? For example, do your cells operate within this type of parameters?
Wow.
And it turns out that literally everything that could be considered an entity, right? That operates on its own with a pre-program, if you will, actually does. It absolutely does operate with these 12 variables. So a trust operates with it. Plants operate with it. It's pretty
We're talking
crazy.
about frequency, quality, and consistency. Those things.
Clarity.
Yeah.
And then there's another 7 as well. Yeah.
Wow. This is very analytical. This is very analytical. It's actually reminding me, as you're talking, it's reminding me of a model that I learned, the wise mind model, where you have the analytical brain on one side and you have the emotional brain on the other side, and in the middle is the wise mind. It's making me remember this model, because you're talking about such deep analytical, complicated processes and structures and ways of thinking, and what is it, goal creation, right?
Yeah, FQ3C has a lot of application. I have found that the easiest way for people to grasp it and really get the most out of it in the shortest period of time is actually through the goal creation process.
Right.
So we decided to really hone in on goal creation and getting your goal to become rated and as a percentage of completion. What a lot of people don't know is if you say, hey, my goal is to go to Disneyland, at best, you're getting about 10 to 15% of a completion rate, which means you're probably not going to go to Disneyland.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not going to happen most likely. That's just wishful thinking, right? But the more detailed you get on the goal, then the higher the probability that your brain is FQ3 seeing its attention onto the goal. So then you got to assess the next part, which is what's your probability of success of reaching this goal, assuming you know where the destination is. And so we're FQ3 seeing the whole way, but now it's brought into a really cool process that we've found is actually incredibly transformative. We've had doctors, physicians, people in the financial realm using it for like trading. I mean, everything. And even been helping with autism, which has been really cool. So it's, if you have your goal down, yes, then we have to know where we are relative to the goal. And then it's all about tracking. The problem is that we don't have, like video games, they have those bars that tell you your progress towards you reaching the next award. We don't have something walking around with us on a daily basis. But if you think about it, gamification is one of the most powerful learning tools for people, and one of the best ways for people to accomplish any goal of any kind. Really, FQ3C, when used in this way, becomes that bar that you get to look at and go like, how close am I? How much more effort do I really need to do? How many more points do I need to score to reach it, right? And to your point, you are talking about the complexity.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that actually we all do it instinctively.
Right.
But it's kind of like when you learned math in school, right? Everybody who went through high school had to learn the Pythagorean theorem.
Right.
But how many people actually could have been thrown into the real world and said, I can use the Pythagorean theorem here and make it work for them?
Right.
There's just not many who could actually say that. And the reason why is because education system's not trained. It's not positioned for us to train to learn application. It's trained for us to do test passing.
Right.
So that also comes down to how do we make decisions? Our finances, our relationships with our family, friends, co-workers. We have this deficit. And so what we're trying to do is bring that bar so you can see the truth and have a measurable, trackable, attainable goal. And you can now start curating your way that you're going to approach it. and know if you are or you're not making progress. And that's really the beauty of it. But it's still simple. It really is. Like it's so intuitive.
You don't make it sound simple.
I don't make it sound simple because we're talking about like the discovery, right? To discover this, that process is completely different. You guys don't have to worry about that. I had to worry about that.
Okay.
But
All
if
right.
you can just take, 10, 15 minutes, go and take an assessment, and it tells
Yeah.
you, hey, you're 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
It tells you what you need to work on to get to 80.
Okay.
Just do it.
Right. Right.
Completely simplifying the whole process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So this sounds like an incredible book, and it probably, I mean, from what I can hear, it should probably be included in like a school curriculum somewhere. What was the most challenging part of writing this book, and how did you overcome it?
I actually write about this in the book.
Okay.
So if you really want to hear the whole story, you can go get the book and read it, and it'll be entertaining, that's for sure. So the book is made to be 3 parts. First
Okay.
part is for, we'll call it the self-help and general population that just kind of wants some nuggets and then wants to use the nuggets as fast as possible.
Okay.
Second segment is actually you getting to experience and watch a live consultation that happens between somebody using FQ3C with a client in that coaching relationship, and you get to watch it. And the third part is you get to take the position of the coach, and you get to use the variables and the formulas to kind of assess it and walk through how that breakdown worked. And and it leaves off with like the hardcore math for maybe the psychiatrists and psychologists out there who are interested in a new psychosis model. Now, as far as the most difficult part, it wasn't the math, it wasn't the planning, it was the fact that I actually lost 8,000 words of the book.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. As a kicker, I wanted to use FQ3C to proof the book, and I wanted the book to proof FQ3C. So I wanted this really cool relationship. So I set, using FQ3C, using all the specific goals and data points and stuff like that, I set a goal, and I said 30 days, I'm going to write a 60,000 word book.
Right.
And I can tell you that when I lost that first 8,000 words, it hit me hard. It was brutal. And for me to keep pace, I had to do 2,000 words a day. So I lost 4 days of work. But despite that setback, ended up being able to complete the book in 16 days using FQ.
Tell us how you did it. What tools, techniques, rituals, like what was it? How did you do it?
Yeah. Well, so it's exactly what we're talking about. By setting that such a clear goal, and I was able to confirm I got at least 90% completion rate of the goal. Okay. So I had a macro and a micro breakdown of my goal. I had all the data points. I had the entirety of the plan. I had a specific end date, I had a specific start date. I had all these different pieces. And if you really want to go and do that, I can give a special unique link to your viewers here if they want to try it for free for one time. I'd be more than happy to open that up for everybody. But clear goal, absolutely essential. And then by having that goal and being able to break it down is how I was able to know that I need to do 2,000 words a day. What was really cool is your mind does this really fun effect. Some people call it the flow. What ends up happening is where your mind, or I should say where your attention goes, really is what it is. Where your attention goes is where your mind and your heart grows. So the more time and more attention I ended up dedicating towards even just the start date, I ended up starting to think about it 24/7. And so when I sat down to actually write the book, especially with the fact that it's such a constraint of time, it was almost like once I got past those first, I'd say 1,500 to 2,000 words,
Yes.
Everything else about the book just started unfolding itself. And I remember at one point I was like, oh man, I'm behind here because of losing 8,000 words. How am I going to be able to get ahead? And I was like, let me just FQ3C it. So when I FQ3C'd it, I was like, okay, when is my peak time of the day where my FQ3C is at its optimal point relative to energy? Okay, then I started writing as much as I could there. My
Yeah.
productivity went up because I was doing 3 times the amount of productivity of words in the
Yeah.
same exact amount of time. So that
Yeah.
helped. And then I was able to also coordinate with my wife. And I was like, listen, I'm going to do this, whether you like it or not. She hated me for 2 weeks. Um, but part of FQ3C, there's the variable continuity, right?
Yeah.
If my wife is not with me, she's against me technically.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, that also means that if I choose my wife, I'm against the book.
Mm.
So I was like, I'm going to choose the book. I'm going to suffer the consequences. And I knew the
Yeah.
consequences. And I said, but the book matters more. And
Right.
I know it sounds brutal, but that's how 16 days to write. If you count the 8,000 words lost, I actually wrote just shy of 70,000 words in
Right.
16 days is possible.
Yeah.
And that's something that was so cool to experience. And I talk more about the fact that I had a couple of other hiccups too, and
Yeah.
actually lost 2 other days. And it just, yes, lots of crazy stuff. Regular life happened, but it didn't matter because through FQ3C and that dedication to it, I was able to
Yeah.
control all the variables and dials to make it so it's absolutely not only probable, but then possible to make something like that happen. And even in this case, when I finished the book in 16 days, I was like, what do I do now with,
Right.
with all the remaining days? So I
Right.
wrote a second book, which was the workbook to accompany it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like 78 pages or something like that. The workbook, got that done, set up a website, secured all the branding, created the logo, and I got like, I think also like 3 pre-sales in that
Yeah.
process,
Wow.
just to proof it all out. And
Yeah.
I did all of that in 30 days when my original goal was just a book,
Wow.
right? So
Yeah.
FQ3C is crazy powerful.
Really is. And what audacious goals. I would like to know how you can do all that and not burn out.
Um, I'm going to bring it back to that saying where your focus goes, your mind and heart grows. And I use the
Hmm.
word grow because when you're growing towards something, your energy also ends up building up in almost like a dopamine hit, if you will,
Hmm.
that dedicates itself towards it. And
Hmm.
this also ties into some of the other variables that we're talking about that we haven't addressed here. The
Hmm.
fact is that I also needed to do some internal work to make sure
Right.
that I was willing to have full-blown fights with my wife.
Right.
Right, I had to be emotionally there at that position and say, hey, am I willing to do this? And when I
Yeah.
was like, yes, I am, and I got the rest of myself in alignment,
Yeah.
it made it so that it was it was almost like the only thing that mattered, if that makes sense. And it's
Okay.
crazy what your mind, your body, your spirit is able to
Wow.
do when you're just like all in on one thing or all
Yeah.
in on 2 things, 3 things, 5 things, whatever it is. But it's like all in really is what FQ3C is about. FQ3C is saying, hey, listen, here's your 12 variables. If
Yeah.
all 12 are ramped up, dialed to the absolute maximum,
Yeah.
then there is essentially nothing that can get in your way except for one piece, and that is time.
Hmm.
That's it. That's the only thing that can really actually get in your way is time, because you might die before it happens. But
Right.
if you have enough time, and that's the only thing, then it's effectively bound to happen, right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk, perfect example of this. Um, I don't know if people know this or not, but he was actually not going to have any more money with that last rocket that landed on that platform. If
Right.
that didn't work, he was done for. But when
Mm.
someone asked him, hey, listen, what would you do if this failed? He said, I won't give up, just keep going. That wasn't
Mm.
going to stop him. He's going to do another company or do another thing. He's just going to keep going. He's
Right.
all in. And he's
Right.
not even all in on being a billionaire. He's all in on terraforming, right?
Right.
Look at
Right.
any billionaire, look at any millionaire, look at any Olympic gold athlete, look at
Yeah.
any professional athlete, look at any successful professional that you want to emulate.
Yeah.
You can see they're all in.
Right.
What all in looks like has been the elusive muse, if you will, that everyone's been trying to figure out what that means. This is what it is. It's the 12 variables. Every
Yeah.
12 variable racked up is all in, and you can measure it. That's the really cool part about it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
This is incredible. This is incredible. Um, I know, I know that you were talking to me a little bit earlier about the editing process. Can you
Yes.
tell me a bit more about your approach to the editing process?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the editing process, I had to assess first and foremost, could I hire an editor to do what I needed them to do or not?
Right.
And through my research, I realized that since this is a new psychosis model, entrusting this to somebody else who doesn't understand it
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be able to edit the book very easily, and then I'd just be charged a bunch of money for them to do a bunch of nothing.
Right.
so so first it was, okay, I need to assess and see what's the optimal parameter to edit.
Yeah.
When I realized that I'm going to be the one who has to edit, I just went through, took a look at some websites. Is like, hey, listen, what's your standard editing processes? What are all the different ways to edit something? Turns
Right.
out that there's like 7 or 8 different ways. I found out, depending upon if you're writing like a novel or if you're writing a self-help book, it kind of slightly changes. And I was like, okay, so for me, I need to make sure that I have kind of all our tenses correctly, because I'm not telling like a romance story where we have to have continuity of story plots and stuff like that.
Right.
It's a lot more academic in nature, although we make it fun with a bunch of really cool stories. Even
Yeah.
one about getting first class tickets without having to pay first class on like probably thousands of flights.
Hmm.
Fun. But once we discovered that, okay, we have to do that pass through, and then we have to make sure that, of course, we do your standard grammar and spacing. The other major part we realized was we have to do I call it the line by line editing, which is every single line I have to meticulously take a look at this and then say it out loud.
Yeah.
And when I say it out loud, does it read that way? And did it say the thing I wanted it to say?
Right.
And is the reader going to hear my voice as an author inside
Right.
of that line? And
Yeah.
every single line went through the whole process.
Wow.
And then the last piece really comes down to, since it's more academic, we wanted to make sure that we have people in the professional world, like doctors of psychology, actually reading the book and using
Yeah.
the assessments.
Yeah.
So their feedback, we directed them, and I say we because I have actually a couple of people that ended up helping me through some of this part of this process.
Mm.
We ended up going and saying, hey, listen, what we want you as a doctor to do is to think of your patient, because we want your patient to be able to read this, because you as a
Right.
doctor have studied this your whole life. So
Yeah.
see if there's a way to make it so that your patient can work with this and grapple with this more easily, so it's
Hmm.
more available to the general population. Because this book is not meant to just be servicing people who are, millionaires, billionaires, or people who are about to become. We were like, this can help you with your relationships. This can
Right.
help you with you just trying to find a job. This can help you with depression, anxiety. This can help you with the whole entire spectrum, because every single thing you do is a decision. So
Mm.
we're like, we want to make sure it's pivoted and addressed and adapted for more of a wider audience. So we had some doctors go through and give us suggestions and make alterations accordingly. But
Yeah.
that's an editing process, and from
Yeah.
there we want sure that it feels like a real person, a genuine person speaking. So
Right.
there is it's more like a teacher's talking to you, not like a
Okay.
lecturer.
Okay.
A teacher who has some stories, some things to be able to throw at your way, examples, so that you really can learn it, but still have fun with it. That's
Yeah.
more of the voice. And I think that's the last part of our editing was, can we
Okay.
ensure that there's a voice that
Yeah.
that will be congruent and consistent throughout the entirety of this book?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. And I know that you're launching this book to be a New York Times bestseller.
Yes.
So, um, how is publishing this book and launching it to become a New York Times bestseller, how is that impacting your personal brand and your business?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, so a lot of I'm going to start with the New York Times bestseller first.
Yeah.
Turns out that there's some rules for you to be a New York Times bestseller, and they didn't actually disclose all of them.
Right.
They hinted at a couple of them and then disclosed some others.
Right.
So through that hinting process, there's a rule that I discovered, and
Right.
it is that you can take all of your pre-sales in perpetuity, meaning like since it could be 10 years ago if you really wanted.
Right.
You can take
Okay.
all of your pre-sales, and then on your publishing like launch date, you have 1 week to then get as many sales as you possibly can, and they have to meet a whole bunch of different other criteria, like different distributors, has to be different countries, can't be on one like geographic location, different formats. They have a nice long list. We'll put it that way.
Right.
But the key thing that we realize is if you really want to set yourself up to be a New York Times bestseller, leverage historical sales. So means we don't actually want to publish.
Oh, right. So it's all on the pre-order.
It's on the pre-order. So get as
Mm,
many of these pre-orders to meet all the different criteria, and then
right.
save your publishing to just kind of do like a little, if you will, sweep. But you don't
Yeah.
have to now think about thousands and thousands of sales on your
Mm,
launch date. Even
yeah.
with just a couple hundred sales within that week, you can
Right.
check off all the rest of their boxes. And so
Amazing.
that's the strategy.
Yeah.
Now, how does that impact the business? It really stinks because we can't publish.
Right.
Uh, so to compensate, what we've done is we've opened up the working document and decided to say, let's bring the community in. Not only
Yeah.
do we have doctors now going through the book and providing suggestions, we have community coming in and reading the
Right.
book, providing
Right.
suggestions. And so by making this a community effort and
Mm,
knowing full well that when we do officially publish, you're going to get whatever it is you paid for, of course, whether it's a paperback or whether it's going to be the digital PDF copy, you
mm,
still get to use FQ3C. You still get to read it. You still get to leverage it in your life. And
yeah.
we get to be able to position it for a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
And what is done also is made it so that we can't charge full price.
Mm,
It's caused some other challenges as far as a lot of people want you to be published in order for it to be a book. That's not
yeah.
true, right? And so there are some of those other challenges and barriers. But from a strategy perspective, New York Times bestseller for us means that we can go and bring this to other much larger institutions and companies and them take it way more seriously.
Wow.
We want
Yeah.
to bring FQ3C as an actual standardized model to help psychiatric patients. And
Right.
through that process, we want to get it brought into systems like Epic, if for anybody in the health industry knows what Epic is.
Okay.
So that's what New York Times bestseller gets us as,
Yeah.
more credibility to
Right.
position us for that. So
Right.
we're sacrificing a lot up front
Mm,
for what we really are looking for. And
right.
again, that's kind of the all-in mentality.
Right.
It's we're all in for New York Times, which means
Yeah.
that we're going to take some hits up front. And
Right.
that's okay. It's part of it. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's just what we got to accept
Yeah.
and move with it as what it needs to be.
Mm.
And I know that I'm on the right track as well here, because there's a book that's being launched by JFK Jr., right?
Okay.
He's launching a book here very, very soon. And when he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about his book, he's like, oh, yeah, I already have 8,000 in pre-sales. I'm like, he's positioning for New York Times bestseller. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. Now it makes
Yeah.
sense when
Yeah,
you look at this.
yeah. I'm struck though with the similarity there between the Amazon and the New York Times bestseller, because the strategy that we use for Amazon is also on the pre-order.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Pre-order as much as you can, but Amazon is it's interesting because you're competing against like your particular niche, and it's a little bit of a shorter duration.
Yeah.
And so you can pick a niche that has nobody in it and become
Mm.
an Amazon bestseller. To be
Mm.
a New York Times bestseller, well, number one, you can't just be selling off of Amazon. You have to sell in,
Mm.
I think it was like, I think it's 5 out of the 7 continents. You have to have
Mm.
had, I think it's like 15 or 20 different countries. You have to have a certain percentage that's not within a specific geographical location. So you can't like be a local celebrity,
Yeah.
for example.
Oh.
Um, you also have to sell from different distributors. So like, I can't have all of them coming from Barnes and Nobles. They have to be from
Right.
Barnes and Noble. Some of them have to be coming from small boutique shops. Some of them have to be coming from
Yeah.
Amazon. Have to become so you have
Wow.
to really spread out all these different platforms.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of prep work, a
Yeah.
lot to do
Yeah.
it. But you're right. The similarity,
Yeah.
pre-sale is the name of the game, and I think that's what a lot of authors don't start off with, is
Yeah.
thinking about, when I get my book done, what does
Yeah.
that do for me,
Yeah.
or what does it do for the audience, or like
Right.
they're so focused on publish a book, publish a book, publish a book. Why are you publishing a book? We're doing
Right.
your type of bestsellers so we can get into Epic, so that we can do a
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar deal.
Right.
You're getting an Amazon bestseller so that you can build credibility within your particular industry. That
Yeah.
way you can have more clients.
Yeah.
So if you go
Yeah.
into this without some sort of plan, goal, right?
Yeah.
Please use the assessment guys. I'm telling you, it's going to help a ton in this area. but
Yes.
using an assessment like that, a tool to get the goal, and then where am I at, and what do I got to do to get there?
Right.
It's just that
Right.
simple process
Yeah.
completely transforms how you approach your book.
Yeah.
And even with the 16 days, right? The
Mm.
16 days was something that was mandatory, because I needed to proof FQ3C. To
Mm.
proof FQ3C, if I do something like it's going to take me a year to write a book, nobody
Mm.
cares.
Mm.
Nobody cares. That's not interesting. That's not fun. That's not exciting. That's not something that seems crazy. That doesn't
Mm.
proof anything. I have to do
Mm.
something crazy, exciting, innovative, difficult,
Yeah.
challenging, hard, brutal. It was brutal, guys. I mean, I was so exhausted. It was
It
brutal.
sounds it. It sounds it. Not for
It
the
was
faint-hearted.
it was brutal. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Navy SEALs out there who would be like, no, I'd rather go back and do my Navy SEAL training.
Right. Right.
Maybe. I don't know. They're I'm probably not giving them enough credit, but the point is that it's hard no matter what
Yeah.
it is. But the
Right.
harder you choose to accept what it is, and or I should say, the harder it is, and you choose to accept it for what it is,
Right.
that gives you the platform, gives you the ability to
Mm.
then set yourself up for the really cool stuff that happens on the back end. You should not
Mm.
be looking at writing a book for the sake of just writing a book. You should be
Right.
looking at writing a book for the sake of doing something hard that
Yeah.
proves something else beyond the book. Because
Right.
the book part it's hard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and for FQ3C, we need to do even harder to,
Mm.
to
Mm.
prove it out as a
Yeah.
model, as a system, as a psychosis, right? Or a
Yeah.
psychosis model. So I hope this gives a lot of people some food for thought, some little cool
Definitely.
tips and tricks.
Yeah.
But yeah, and of course,
Definitely.
have fun.
Yeah. Have fun with it, right? Yeah. So true. So, what advice would you give to other aspiring authors out there who are struggling to start or complete their book?
So I would say start with the end in mind. Every successful individual I've seen who's ever written like gotten a Netflix deal, every one of them who's ever completed their book, got it published, or have done any sort of work of any kind, especially at
Mhm.
the professional level. Okay. We're
Mhm.
talking about professional level here.
Yeah.
They don't ever go into it without there being almost like a tangible, you can taste it, you can sense it, you can see it, you can smell it, form of what that end result is.
Mm.
And that means that you need to absolutely take the time and sit there and mull over it. Don't
Mm.
watch TV, mull over the
Right.
book. Don't
Right.
go on, crazy calls, adventures, mull over the book. Don't spend money in areas that are going to distract you, alcohol, drugs, whatever your vice may be. Go mull over your book. Go
Yeah.
go where your focus goes is
Yeah.
where your mind and heart grows. It's
Right.
it's it's crazy how that alone will
Mm.
give you motivation to get started, because once you have that thing in your mind, then you can now start going through the part of the process of taking this tangible essence of this piece of beautiful work that you have ready to go.
Yeah.
Now you go and create the goal. Now you set those expectations. Now you start taking those actions and
Yeah.
create them from that goal and from positioning where you are. Now that you know those two things, then you create your plan. And that plan, this is my second tip for you guys, have an outline.
Right.
The best way that I found was, don't write your book according to the words or the paragraphs. Write your book according to your titles.
Right.
So title list, and then go, great, I have my titles. That's your outline of your story of your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now all it is just go back to chapter one
Yeah.
and start writing, right? But remember, by this point, you already have a tangible understanding of exactly what this book is, exactly what it's going to end up becoming, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to unfold. A good
Right.
example of this, and this last thing I'm going to leave off, I'm so sorry, it's just a really cool story. This is an anime, of all things. The person who made this anime called One Piece, which right now I think has like 2,000 episodes or something crazy. He started out saying a very specific line, and that specific line was, I want to create the most epic, most crazy, most insane fight that's ever been created, ever.
Okay.
And that fight that end fight is what he started mulling over. And he
Okay.
created all these characters, all these people, these different, different skills, different powers, different perspectives, personalities at this insane fight.
Yeah.
And in that insane fight, once he had it, he was like, now I get to create how we get there.
Right.
Now he creates this whole entire story, creates all the different
Right.
branches, everything else. And
Right.
it now is considered the most successful anime with the longest running episodes. I think it's already crushed Seinfeld, if I remember correctly. And he's only finally reaching their final section. And that means there's probably like another somewhere between, I'm guessing, 700 and 1,500 episodes left. Talk about a
Wow.
crazy work, but
Yeah.
also talk about such a cool aspiration, such a cool goal that's led to him doing some of the most crazy and unique things that have never been seen before, which is
Yeah.
why he is living the dream, if you will. So,
Right.
yeah, go big, make it tangible, create the goal, create the plan, create your outline, go.
Wow. 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 Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights and expertise today. Where can we find you on social media or online?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to find anything FQ3C is just going to fq3c.com, or you
Okay.
can Google it,
Yeah.
FQ3C. And on the homepage, all of the socials are at the very bottom. So I'll say I think we're on like 9 or 10 different platforms all over, right?
Okay.
As far as for me personally, I would love to connect with everyone individually. More than happy to have conversations and collaborations. I know for myself, I really want to be able to connect with coaches and partner with you to give this tool to not only you, but also put it into the hands of your clients, because this will just transform their lives like we've already seen across the board. So would love to be able to have that relationship get set up. And we're completely non-invasive, right? So if you have interest in that particular, please reach out to me directly. I would love to speak with you. And you can find me on LinkedIn, which is Laufman. Well, we'll go with linkedin.com /in /Laufman Shane.
Yeah. And I'll put in the caption to this video, I'll put your website in there and ways for people to find you.
Yeah. And if you're interested in doing handles, then it's at FQ3C Success is the vast majority of the platforms. You can find us underneath that handle. Yeah.
Sure. Wow. Thank you so much. This conversation has been so enlightening and inspiring. You've offered so much value for anyone who is just looking to improve their life, improve their focus, get their goals done, just publish a book, build a business, become a best-selling author. So we're so grateful for your time and your wisdom today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I really just want to see that everybody else walks away with something that they can find is actionable and that they can do it today. That's the most important thing at the end of the day. It's don't be complacent. Do it now.
Yeah.
Go.
Amazing. So inspiring. Thank you so much, Shane.